It's taken its sweet time.
Hey, hello, hi everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. I see Bazlur here from Bangladesh, so I think Bazlur is very, very late at night. So we're gonna be here today with an amazing speaker, an amazing guest, a good friend, and I'm gonna introduce him in a minute. But before I introduce him, I want to apologize. You know, the gods of technology are not helping us out today. We were unable to get his camera working. So we're gonna do voice only today, right? But the whole objective here is to get your questions answered, and the guest today, Kirk Pepperdine, is an amazing speaker. He's been in a lot of events. He's a track lead and track in selection on part of the selection committee of different events. He runs his own event, an amazing event. We're gonna talk about that today too, and so, for us to make this the best results, I know you guys sent me questions before, so we're going to go from those questions too, but I want you to go to the chat on the side and use the chat to ask questions. So how about if you, just so you know where the chat is, how about you say where you're from, right? I know Bazlur from Bangladesh, I know Pedro's from Brazil, so tell me where you're from so we know that you know where the chat is so we can make this very, very interactive. So without further ado, so Sebastian's from Canada. So hi, Sebastian. Very good to see you here, right? So without further ado, and actually Kirk is in Canada right now. And so without further ado, let me introduce to you guys our guest today. So Kirk Pepperdine, he's a Java champion. He is, lots of people here. So Max from Sardinia. Hi, Max. Rodrigo from Brazil. Girchan from Amsterdam. That's very cool, right? So Sebastian from Canada. Very, very good. So Kirk Pepperdine is a Java champion. He's a Java 1 rock star. He's a performance specialist at JClarity. He's also a co-organizer of JCrete, one of the most interesting events in the world, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. And Gershon says he's a god, right? That's good. So Kirk, maybe you could talk with the gods of technology to help us out here today, right? So with you, a good friend and an amazing speaker, Kirk Pepperdine. Hi, Kirk. How are you doing?
I am just crumbling under the weight of your introduction at the moment. So I'm crushed. Kind words. I hope you meant at least some of them. And yeah, so how are you doing way down in your wonderful little the plantation?
Yes, things are doing fine here, Kirk. Things are very, very good.
Excellent.
And we have actually this week we had lots of cool people coming in to talk about being a speaker, and it's very exciting to do this. Very, very exciting to be with people like you. So thanks a lot. Yeah. And now I should ask the same. You just moved to Canada right now, right? How are things going on your new neck of the woods?
Our neck of the woods, yeah. So yeah, it was quite a journey. Maybe I can tell you a bit about the journey because it does involve a bit of speaking. So we basically unloaded our house the end of May, and then I drove to Sofia, Bulgaria, where I spoke at J Prime. It took me a day to, basically all day to drive there. The next day I spoke at J Prime. Then the next day we drove to Athens. I spoke at Voxed Days in Athens. And then I went to Crete right after that. Spent 6 weeks there before 7 weeks actually, before we had our JCrete Unconference. Picked up a couple of friends of mine who are also awesome speakers, and I think you'll be speaking to them also, Michelle, Andres. So I give a call out to them because they are both incredibly, just amazing. And after that, we drove back through Greece, Albania, Bosnia, Macedonia, Croatia, back to Hungary, sold my car, flew here. And that is pretty much, that story of our move to Canada.
Yeah. So while you're moving, you're stopping at places to give talks, right? That's amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was the fun part. Well, gave talks and basically executed on two, J-Crete 2018. Although I have to say we've set it up perfectly so that no one actually has to do anything, and that's the beauty of an unconference is that no one has to do anything because everyone the only thing you have to do is come together, and once you're together, everything else just happens. Uh, with the help of a little bit of nudging and pushing with some other people that we get to do that for. So basically, I just get to have fun talking tech for a week to some of the most amazing, the real rock stars in the tech industry that show up here.
cool. Very cool. Before I dive in into the rock stars you're just talking about, Gertchen is asking if you're moving, if you're permanent in Canada now.
We are permanent in Canada for whatever definition of permanent we decide is appropriate. So we haven't decided on the definition of permanent, but yeah, we're here.
Okay, cool. All right. So where in Canada? Well, Gertchen wants to know all the details.
Oh, Gurtan, yeah. Well, actually, I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia. And as Heinz pointed out, Kelowna is I'm not sure which language. It's in one of the native languages that are spoken around here. I guess I'm going to plead ignorance on that. I should find out. But Kelowna actually means grizzly bear. And we have been out hiking around. I've not run into a bear yet. Cross fingers, hope we don't. But we have actually run into evidence of bears because there's a creek or a small river by here. They have, strangely enough, I've never heard of this before, but it's really kind of fun. You know how salmon sort of spend their life out at sea, and then before they mate and die, they run up a river doing crazy things. Mm-hmm. Well, apparently there's some fish around here that are related to salmon, but they don't go to the sea. They live in a big lake that's here, and they run up the creeks. And so they attract the bears, and there's all kinds of nice hiking paths along the creek. So we were up watching the fish and trying to avoid the bears who might be fishing for the fish who are trying to swim up this little creek. So yeah, so Kelowna is pretty much in the south middle of British Columbia. So 4 hours from Vancouver, 4 hours from Calgary, approximately.
Very, very cool. Okay, yeah. Kirk, so let's start with I'm not sure if there's anything you want to start, but you just mentioned J-Crete, and you're talking about all of the great co-speakers that you guys have at J-Crete, and as you said, it's an unconference that you bring people in together, and you actually get like the cream of the cream, right, of people that are coming to J-Crete and everything. Mm-hmm. So when you're around with all those speakers, can you start by telling us what do you hear from them, or what you think are like the 2 or 3 top tips on how to become a great speaker?
Yeah. Okay. So strangely enough, I mean, when Heinz and I first initially talked about J-Crete, we wanted an event where we could just basically attract the best talent, because some of the top guys, because we just wanted to talk to them ourselves just about tech. And we wanted to bring other people in who maybe didn't have, maybe, they're all really cool, good people, but maybe they just didn't have the experience. And I can probably pick on one person just to let you know how it all went. It's like Rabia Granger is, she lives somewhere up in Germany, and she became involved in J-Crete, and she's one of our disorganizers. So she helps us with getting different things done. And it's really been cool. And there's also, I guess, Dimitri, who's our master of ceremonies during the week. It's the same type of thing. What happened is that we created this environment where people felt safe. They felt safe that they could talk, they could express their opinions, they could learn from these highly experienced people, But it's really weird. It's these highly experienced people that you would think would be like, top of the mountain looking down on the masses type people. They're really not that way. They're all like really, they want to interact, they want to talk, they want to learn, they want to experience, just like everybody else. And so so once people get in there and they see this, they say, oh my God, okay, this is cool. I mean, I can actually converse with, I don't know, Cliff Click. If you don't know who Cliff Click is, well, he put the hotspot engine into the Java virtual machine. Or Attila Szegedi, he put JavaScript into the Java virtual machine. So these are really, really accomplished people who've done very, very important things for this industry. And the nice thing about it is that these people, like Rabi and everything, like start interacting and they start talking, and then they start gaining confidence. And I think the best thing, or the thing that you really need to be a good speaker, well, there's probably three things. But certainly one of them is just confidence, to say that, hey, I have something I can share with you. It's my experience. And that's what a non-conference is really about. It's sharing your experiences. So it's not about preparing talks and having talks and things like that. It's about coming together and sharing your experience. And that's really what a talk should do. It should share your experience, right? You should be able to say it with confidence, otherwise it's going to be difficult for you to deliver the message. And I think one of the biggest things that really surprises people is be entertaining. You're there to educate, but you're also there to entertain. And if you look at some of the better speakers, the ones that you really that you really enjoy seeing over and over again, I can think of like Josh Long, which I think you're going to interview. He is a really entertaining speaker, but he provides a very heavy educational message. You look at Mark Heckler, again, entertaining. Jim Weaver, entertaining, but they all deliver some technical message there, because at our hearts, we're technologists. We want to learn about the technology. But I think the human aspect of it is that, we don't want to sit through another boring lecture by someone who's speaking like, maybe I'm going to talk about garbage collection this way. You're either out the door or you're asleep really good. So you sort of have to keep people engaged. And, I use the word entertainment, maybe it's a bit flippant, but, you want to try to keep them engaged. And I think, this comes in a regular talk. It means it's like a one-way delivery, not like an unconference where you have back and forth, but in a one-way delivery, that means that, it takes a bit of prep work. You need to think about your slides. So you need to get your slides down, or your story down, right? Get your slides down. And then it's the work afterwards that really makes it what I call, turns probably a good presentation into a great presentation, is being able to dress up the slides to make them interesting and make them more entertaining. And I think that's one aspect of talks that people fall down on, because they'll say, hey, I got my story. This is the thing I'm passionate about. That's what I'm going to talk about. And they rip it down on slides, and then they forget about, how do I engage the audience? How do I make them feel like they are part of this talk, as opposed to just, just being at the delivery end of a monologue, shall we say. That's my monologue.
Whoops. Okay, very good. So let me kind of start with the questions here. And just kind of invite everyone from the audience to go ahead and ask questions on the chat, right? Please ask your question, because we want to do this in a way to answer your questions, right? But I want to start from the people sent before, and you talk about the entertaining part. And one of the questions that was asked is, how do I started my presentation in a very motivated way to actually keeps people attention? Do you have any tips on just kind of the very first minutes of how you actually get started?
Yeah. So I like to sometimes use a funny or goofy story surrounding the technology. It's like maybe something that I've done that's really kind of goofy, or I will maybe relate to another situation that I've been in where, you know, it's kind of, you know, fun, or you're going to ask questions about of the audience as to how, you know, their experiences with the technology. Has anyone ever had any fun experiences with the technology, or done something, you know, I guess, you know, try to find out from the audience via questions is another technique as to what's motivated them to come to your talk. If you're speaking in a conference, there's generally multiple tracks, which means that I have to basically select against, you know, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 different talks that I'm looking at, going like, you know, why did I pick that one? What was so interesting about that particular talk in that particular abstract that said, that's the talk that I'm going to spend my time in, right? I'm going to spend the next hour of my life listening to that guy or that person, that, you know, be it male, female, doesn't really, you know. And, you know, think about, you know, the audience is coming there to see you. So, you know, maybe you want to explore that, and tell something personal about yourself. You know, you messed up. You went into this particular project. You had these assumptions. They were all wrong. You end up messing up. This is how things really work. And, you know, lead that into, you know, this is how I use this technology to help me solve this real world problem. Or, you know, this is what I thought about it, and I was completely wrong, and here's why. And just lead into the technology section after up front, trying to engage the audience and trying to make it personal for them. You know, so it's basically just storytelling, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's good. So you know, Gertrude also did a suggestion here is, you know, do a funny slide first, right? While they're waiting for you to start, they're laughing already. So that's another good suggestion right there. So just kind of giving everyone an idea of how important this whole motivation or getting the audience attention is. We got a lot of questions about this, right? You know, so for example, you know, try to catch the audience attention. You know, struggling to be more lively, make it interesting for the audience. You know, so all kinds of similar things, right? You know, keeping up the interest. I mean, there's a lot of this is clearly something that speakers are worried about, right? And I'm gonna kind of, you know, lead into another aspect that you just mentioned about doing a story, because there is one of the questions was, how do I find a good storyline, right? So, you know, it's part of being the whole part of being interesting with the audience, being lively, and all of these is a lot has to do with, as you just said, a lot has to do with the story that you're creating for your presentation. So how do you actually find good to include in your talk?
How do I find good stories? The honest answer, I don't have a clue. I just look at something, and I'll just look at it, and I'll draw from something, and I'll say, you know, here's a storyline. Here's a way that I can weave a story around this particular message that I want to deliver. How I do that, I'm not sure. One of the things that I do, just listen to a lot of other people speaking, or a lot of interviews, or read a lot of interviews. And when you start reading a lot, then what you find is that you'll pick up an idea here, an idea there, and then you'll synthesize it into something that makes it your own. And eventually, if you have enough of these sort of in your, you know, bag of things, then eventually you're just going to run into a situation where you're going narratively through something and say, if I take this idea and that idea and throw them together, I get this idea, and that fits there, and it helps my story. So I wouldn't say it's crazy. Say, you know, yeah, it's kind of tricky, but it's just, I'll just have things, and you just take notes, and eventually you might find that thing to be useful in some talk. But I think the other thing too is that you need to talk about something that you're passionate about. You should be able to do your talk without your slide deck, or without the projector at all.
Or if you, video.
Well, yeah, without video. I mean, and just to give you an idea, I mean, I was in at one conference, and I was the first speaker, first day. And of course, what happens? None of the video AV works, and they don't know why. So well, they're mucking around up on stage, and I'm sitting there like going like dum dum dum, tick 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 tick. There goes my talk time. And after a few minutes, I said, okay, it looks like this is going to take a long time. I'm just going to do this without the slide deck. And so I did the presentation mostly without the slide deck. And I was talking about tuning the G1 GC, the garbage collector, which is something that you would think that you would need a slide deck for. And it actually turned out it turned out much better than I expected. I got a lot of great feedback at the end of the talk because I think one of the things is a topic that I can speak about very succinctly and without slides. And it's something that I do all the time. So it's just what I'm doing. So if I'm just talking about what I'm passionate about and what I do, then the talk is easy because I'm just telling people what I've done. And that's it. There's no more to it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and if you consider what you're doing right now, right? You know, you are actually presenting to an audience here, and I mean, you're not even showing up, right? I mean, there's not even video, and you're still presenting and still passing your ideas and things like that. So you know, being able to do this is it's amazing that you are doing it.
Well, everybody can do it. I think everybody can do it. I think one thing we saw at J-Crete is that once people got comfortable with the idea, and the people who show up at J-Crete are pretty much by definition passionate about what they're doing. And so the confidence with the passion means that there's some caring there and everything. And so once you get all of that combination together, these people have turned out to be like Rabia. She's a great speaker. She speaks at a lot of conferences now. I'm not sure she would have done that without having the safe environment that we created at J-Crete to help her get over the initial fears that were preventing her from speaking. And it's the same with Dimitri, our MC. You know, again, we created an environment. He got comfortable in that environment, and he said, okay, I can use this as a platform to basically go and speak at other conferences. And he's a great speaker too. And, you know, again, a passionate guy speaking about what it is that he does. Same with Rabia. She speaks about what she does. And since we're talking about development things, I mean, she's really just speaking to her audience. And that's pretty much that's the only trick. Turns out the trick isn't a trick.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions here about preparation and things like this. So, you know, and you're showing how on J-Crete, you know, people go there, they feel safe, you start speaking there, right? So it not necessarily a lot of preparation because it's a non-conference, right? So by definition, there's not a lot of preparation. And
well, no, I disagree. There's been a lot of preparation for J-Crete, right?
Okay.
It's all your education, all your work experience. Life has prepared you for J-Crete.
Okay. All right. Good. That's exactly where I wanted to get then, right? So, you know, do you think that you know, you're kind of getting people they haven't prepared to give a talk, right? So they just come in and they talk at J-Crete because they feel safe, right? So in terms of preparation, how much of, you know, actually giving talks is what you need to prepare yourself to give talks?
For a traditional talk at a traditional conference, you know, if it's a big conference, I don't really like giving a talk for the first time at a big conference because the first time you give a talk, you're going to see all of the flaws in the talk or how you're not delivering the message that you want to deliver, and you want to make some sort of corrections on those things. So, so I try to basically develop these things in more informal situations. So you just sort of work on it. The other thing I find is that that I don't want to, you know, some people rehearse. I don't. The reason why I don't is because I find I do better if I don't than if I do. Some people want the comfort of rehearsing. So you have to know yourself and understand, do I need to rehearse this or do I not want to rehearse it? And that's something you're going to decide on your own. But I think, a lot of time is, for me, is like, is you need to set aside time to say, okay, I'm going to do a Vertex talk at Oracle Code 1, right? So when we finish this call, I have to start writing demo code. Once I have all the demo code written, then I'll weave a story around the demo code, right? Then I'll pass it off to my co-speaker, Clement, and he will adjust it, I'm sure, and he'll do some other stuff to it. And then we'll get it back. And this is a special case where we have a co-speaker, but basically it's the same type of process, right? I'm going to develop the artifacts I need for my story. I'm going to develop the story. So I'll have an outline of the story, develop the artifacts I need to support the story. Then we'll weave together the slide deck to basically support the story. And then when I've looked at all of that, at that point, when I have all of the technical things in there and everything seems to be flowing the way you want, then I'm going to decide how to weave in the bits that would be what I call the entertainment bits, the fun bits, the things that make it more interesting, more visually appealing, and the things that are possibly going to grab the audience and keep them there. I mean, of course, the technical content is the most important thing. That's what I'm going to focus on the most. But I think there's a visual aesthetic quality to the whole thing that you have to pay attention to also. So I will do that also.
All right, very cool. All right, so I'm kind of, I want to jump into the questions of the audience here. Gertjan says presentation delivery as form of programming. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that, but
why? But I mean, Gertjan's also another excellent speaker, and he's and what I find amazing about him is he seems to be able to talk to just about any subject, and I think that takes a special talent to be able to do that, to deliver material the way Gertjan does. I can't do that.
Yeah, cool.
I cannot do what Gertjan does.
Yeah. Cool. Gertjan, yeah, thanks, dude. He says, okay, cool. Yes. So thanks, Gertjan, for being here with us. So Basler says, I do live in a part of the world where conferences are not so common. Usually doesn't take place even if that's too small. I've initiated a virtual meetup, which I do my colleagues bi-weekly. I want you to know, how can I get some help from people like you?
Oh, for the video thing. Wow. Yeah, the video thing is, as you can, well, as we're experiencing today, it comes with a whole bunch of technical challenges on top of the, on top of the normal challenges that you have speaking if you're going to deliver a presentation that way. But at the end of the day, I think, in terms of the presentation, take away the technicalities of it, it's the same type of thing. What you want to do is you just want to have a good story and be able to deliver the story, and make sure you understand what your technical message is that you're trying to send, and just make sure you're sending that technical message. In terms of dealing with the technology, it's just, yeah, well, we missed today. But I think that just involves investment in money, investment into equipment, into bandwidth, into redundancy, into just all of the normal technical issues that you think of. So I mean, I do a workshop. I present a workshop on performance tuning. And most people don't realize it, but when I do these workshops, I tend to carry 2 laptops with me. And you might say, why? Well, I mean, it's quite obvious. I mean, I'm going into someplace, we have scheduled a certain amount of time. We want to make sure that everything is functional and working. And so in that case, I'm coming in with some redundancy. So if there's a failure, I haven't blown the schedule because I can't cope with that particular failure. And so this is why the redundancy is absolutely important. So I carry 2 laptops. And with all the other stuff, it's a pain in the neck when you get to security at airports because they look at you funny. Why are you carrying all this stuff? But, so be it. This is just one of the things that you need to do. So if you're going to do webinars, you need to make sure that you have all of the backups in place to make sure that if something fails, you can continue forward.
Yeah, that's cool. So I think his question is more towards, how can get help from people like you to come in and present remotely.
Just ask. It's not an issue, I think. I think a lot of speakers are very happy to present things. I've done it for a couple of jugs. We'll just set it, especially if the travel is an issue. I can, we just set it up and just do it, just like we're doing now. How did you get me here?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing is that especially if you're doing something virtual that doesn't require travel, it's usually 1 hour out of the day of the person, something like this. It's a lot easier to actually get. So thank you, Kirk, and for doing it, for example.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Cool, thank you. So let me kind of jump right into another question from Baslur. And Kirk, you are a Java champion, but not only a Java champion. You are one of the persons at the Java Champions program that you discuss a lot. How to become a Java champion in the selection process of the Java champion, and not only that, you also suggested lots of people to become Java champions. So Baslur says his question in the beginning. He said. I don't know where his question is, but I'm interested in knowing about the Java champion process. So can you and I would like to tie this into with the speakers, right? So being a speaker, does that help? Doesn't help to become a Java champion? Is necessary to be a speaker to be a Java champion? How does those things tie up together?
Okay, so well, Bruno, you're also a Java champion, right? So I think you know a lot about the process yourself. The process is really just about passion, right? If you're out in the world and you're sharing your experiences with respect to Java, then and you're doing interesting things and you're contributing to community, just as Bruno does a lot of contribution to community, and he's very passionate about this. Then what will happen is that other Java champions will notice that this is what's happening, and they should nominate you based on your work. And in this case, will be your work with the community, helping to educate the community to make them better Java developers, or or know more about what's happening in the ecosystem, whatever it is that you're doing. And I think that's just all you have to do, is you just have to be passionate about something, pick it, do it, and speak about it, write about it. Blogging, things like that are important ways that we communicate with each other, and just be involved. And if you're involved in speaking and doing this, then I think the Java Championship comes as a consequence of this. It's not really, it's not really something that you can ask for and get. It's something that sort of comes to you. And it comes to you from what you've done or what you're doing. I don't know if you can add something to that, Bruno.
Well, no, I totally agree with you, and I think that's Java Champions is more like a recognition of the things that you did, and yes. And so I don't think, for example, that speaking is necessary for you to become a Java champion. But if you're working on an open source project, for example, and you might be called in to be a Java champion because of that. But from my experience is that once you start speaking, that's when people notice you, right? Even if you're working on amazing project but you don't talk about it, then what happens is that people don't realize who you are. They don't notice you. Actually, would like to talk about Gertchen, for example. I remember one time when we were doing a NetBeans event here in Brazil, and we were doing it, and then we asked for the NetBeans community on who would be the people that they wanted to bring in for this event, right? And the number one person selected to it was Gertchen, right? And Gertchen at the time he was writing all of the documentation of NetBeans, so he was writing a lot. He was writing the blog posts, and he was putting a lot of things out there. So there's a lot of other engineers in NetBeans that were not considered at all. I mean, they were doing great work, but they were not showing up, right? And Gertchen was doing the work and showing up, and so for me, I think that being a speaker will help you a lot in terms of being a Java champion.
It gives you more visibility, but I think it also gives your project. I mean, if you're working on an open source project and you're not talking to anyone about it, people are just going to find it accidentally if they happen to do the right Google search. If you're out there talking about it and branding it and promoting it, then what happens is, in this case, is that people are going to hear about it, and once they've heard it about enough, they're going to come and check it out. So it's a completely different, it's all about reach, right? And speaking is just one of the ways that you can reach people. It's not the only way, but it's one of the ways, and it's an effective way, especially if it gets recorded. Then when it's recorded, people might stumble upon it on YouTube or whatever, and in that case, it's sort of something that keeps on giving. It's the same with blogging too. I would say that when my Java champion thing came from combination of blogging and just being involved in writing. And I thought writing is also something that's very, very important. So if I write an article for, I don't know, Java Magazine, then generally about 10,000 or so people are going to read that pretty much fairly quickly. And over time, you might get like about 20,000 people reading that particular article. So for a well-written article, you maybe get to be between 10 to 20,000 people reading it, somewhere in that range. And, that's a huge reach, So if you're looking at like 1% of those people coming in and being more interested in doing something, of course, 1% of 20,000 is a much nicer number than 1% of the number of people you might be able to talk to if you're sitting in your closet all day, just typing it, writing code.
Whoa, very cool. Yeah. Sitting on the closet all day, just writing code can be amazing in lots of ways, but definitely not going to bring you the attention that you want, right?
That you might need in order to make your project successful. But I mean, this is a whole thing. It's like, you have to look at your motivation for doing this. My motivation for speaking really was, I have my workshop. I want to try to promote my workshop. I think it's a really cool workshop. People really like it. They enjoy it. How are they going to hear about it? Well, you get word of mouth that gets you so far. Then you sort of have to go into this self-indulgent mode of having to do this, what I call shameless self-promotion. I think it's unfortunately an important aspect of it. It's not something that I really enjoy doing, but it's one of these necessary evils, because what happens is that because of that sort of necessary evil, I get to do the really cool thing, which is have people come and join in my workshop and have them basically learn about how to very efficiently find and fix performance issues, and maybe even recognize performance issues that they didn't know that they had, and be able to do something about them. And that's really my motivation. That's what I think is really cool. And the other stuff is really stuff I have to do. to let other people see what's going on here, and when they see it, hopefully they think it's cool, and then we can start a conversation about why this is cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because a lot of times you say like the shameless self-promotion, but at the same time, if you don't do it, then there's a lot of people out there that they could have their lives improved, they could have their project improved because they know about your workshop and they learn how to fix their problems, and they can have their life, and not only their lives, but everyone that use their software is going to have their lives improved because of that. And once you realize that, breaking that barrier of you accepting that you have to promote yourself, you actually bring a better life for a lot of people. That's when motivation happens, right?
Yeah, and that winds back into the speaking, right? So one of the things you can do to reach people is to speak, and if you're speaking about what you're doing, what you're passionate about, and it's useful and helpful to people, they will show up, and they'll be interested in having a conversation with you. And I get through the talks, but really the interesting part is Q&A or the stuff afterwards. That happens afterwards when you start meeting people and talking to people, and you get to share their experiences, and you get to see what they are doing. And to me, that's the real fun part. The necessary evil part is that I got to stand up on stage and speak for an hour and do all the prep work and all this other stuff to get up there and to do it. So for me, that's sort of the necessary evil part, and it's the benefit afterwards, where with the personal interactions, which is really the cool part when you get to meet people and see what they're doing.
Okay, very cool. I love that part too. So Sebastian is going to be a first-time speaker at Oracle Code 1 this year.
Awesome.
So I think he's talking about the thing that you talked before about being funny, being entertaining. And so how about if our attempts to be funny, entertaining fails, or if our story doesn't connect to the people during the talk? Are there any recovery strategies that you could use to mitigate that?
Oh, yeah. So just have like an MP4 of crickets and just play it. How's that?
That's funny by itself, right?
Yeah, I mean that if you completely missed it, I mean that's going to recover you quite nicely. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think if you're telling a personal story about yourself and how you got involved in something, and and asking people how many people are involved and how did they get involved up front, then you might burn. I got to tell you, one of the weirdest things I did, and I think people were kind of shocked that I did. Actually, I had the organizer of the conference came up and said he was shocked that I did this. And I've actually done something similar at another conference. I went to a conference in Sweden. It was my first time talking in Sweden, and I'm Canadian. So what do Swedes and Canadians have in common besides lots of snow? It's hockey. So what I did was I burned about 5 minutes of my presentation time, which is quite a bit of time, and I basically talked about the history of Swedish players coming into the NHL. And I named the players and how they managed, and the experience started off terrible, and then it got better, and now of course Sweden produces has some of the Swedish guys are some of the best, if not the best, hockey players in the NHL. And so what I wanted to do is I say, I'm in Sweden, let's see if I can make a connection with them. So I talked about this thing that said, here's something that's that we share. Being Canadian, being Swedish, and so that was one thing that made a connection, and that seemed to work very well. I probably wouldn't do it again, but anyways, that's what I did in that particular scenario. And when I first talked in Denmark, I went around the day before and I took a lot of photographs of statues, and in particular mermaids. And so I just said, hey, first time here, here's some really cool stuff that I saw that's all around you. And I just showed these pictures of the mermaids. till I got to the picture of the male mermaid. And I asked at the end of that, I said, okay, I've never seen a male mermaid before. Can anyone explain this to me? Because I don't quite get it, you know, just something off the cuff like that. And at that point, I think I had the audience just completely wrapped up, because they said, you know, I cared, you know, about the Danish audience. I went around and I, you know, tried to make some connection with them. And once we started that way, it was really nice. So, you know, sometimes it's not about technology. Sometimes it's about just, you know, just finding a way to make a connection in some interesting way. You know, everybody cracked up about the male mermaid thing, but anyways, that was it.
Cool. Very cool. All right. So you know, we're getting I mean, a little bit over the top of the hour now, right? So we kind of start to close things down here. But one of the things that I wanted was to get everyone here to, you know, Kirk Pepperdine. I'm just gonna just do this here. Okay, so Kirk Pepperdine, it's on Twitter, right? And so he tweets a lot about you know, Java stuff and Java VM information. He tweets about performance, right? He has an amazing, as he already mentioned here, he has an amazing performance workshop. So on your screen, if you're watching the record, maybe down in the description, you're gonna see Kirk's Twitter. So click on the link right now, follow Kirk on Twitter, and so you can actually have a connection with him. That's especially important for you, Baslur. They're asking, how do I get help from Kirk and others to come to give talks to your user group? You know, ping him up on Twitter. That's a good start. All right. So Kirk,
I got a question to Sebastian. I'm just trying to figure out which city does he live in.
So Baslur he's from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Sebastian. I thought you said there was no Sebastian was from Canada.
Oh no, Sebastian. I'm sorry. I was okay. So yeah. So yeah, Sebastian's from Ottawa.
Where? I missed that.
Oh, Sebastian's from Ottawa.
Ottawa.
All right.
Ottawa.
Okay. Ottawa.
Hey, my hometown. Yeah. Awesome. That's my hometown, by the way. That's where I'm from originally.
Oh,
okay. Cool.
Oh, cool. Okay, so he actually says, thanks, Kirk. What you said just gave me an idea to start my talk.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, with Oracle Code 1, I think it. So actually, the other thing that's interesting about this is, like, how do you get a talk accepted, and how do you get a good abstract together, and how do you need to get some catchphrase line in there that, you know, if I'm reading like 800 abstracts, you're gonna have to put something in there that's kind of interesting, that tweaks my interests, so that it gets pushed to the top of the pile, so I'll come back and look at it more deeply to see if it's something I'm really interested in having here. And I think, you know, being succinct, concise, and having some catchy thing in there in the abstract is absolutely necessary. One of the sessions that we had at JCrete this year, which I thought was quite interesting. Oh, sorry, Jay Onsen, is we helped the Japanese speakers build abstracts for conferences. So that was one of our sessions. We took a look at the abstracts that they had written, and we rewrote them. And that was our session. I love on conferences because you can do stuff like that. And from that, I think we got a lot of really wonderful tips about how you write an abstract that's interesting, right? Because you think of it, you need to not only pitch the conference organizers with the abstract, but you also need to pitch the attendees. You know, again, the question is, why am I going to spend an hour of my life sitting in a room listening to you? You know, what is the compelling message you're going to, you know, how are you going to help me? What is the compelling message you're going to present that's going to make me choose your talk over all of the other people who might be speaking in that particular track? And it's a tough task, because I think with Java, you know, core Oracle Code 1, typically about 80 to 90% of the abstracts will be rejected, not because they're good, it's just that there's 10% that are better. Or not because they're not good, it's because there's 10% that are better. So it's tough. It's a really tough, competitive place.
Yeah, very cool. So this whole idea about improving the abstracts, for example, that's why we're doing this initiative, right? So if you're watching us here, one of the reasons why we're doing this initiative is so we can help you become a better speaker. We can mentor you on being a better speaker, right? So at the portal that you had access when you registered for here, right? At the portal, we're gonna have all the interviews. We're also gonna have more material to help you. And one of the things that we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be doing mentorship, right? So you can come in and discuss your presentation, discuss your abstract. We're going to be doing this to help you, submit better talks and do better presentations, right? So,
Bruno, maybe I can suggest this, and this might be fun. Is like go
ahead.
Have your people who are following you send in an abstract for a talk, and let's run through them. We'll just maybe we can have a couple of us on, and we'll just run through the abstracts and say, this one's good, or this one could be changed this way, or, just basically critique them all and just maybe rewrite a couple of them.
Cool. Yeah, we can totally do this. That would be an amazing idea, Kirk.
That would be, I think that would be an amazing session.
Yes. So let's do this. Let's plan for it. I'm going to ask for people for abstracts, and once we have at least 10 or 15, we can schedule a session. How about that?
That sounds brilliant. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. All right. So Kirk, just so we can finish things up here, I don't see any more questions, right? So, is there anything else that you'd like to mention for speakers and advanced or beginners or whatever you want to talk about? Is there like one last message you want to talk about?
Just, if you're a beginner or you want to improve, well, it doesn't really matter where you are. Look at other speakers. Look at what they're doing. Try to understand what you like about how they're presenting things. Try to understand what you don't like about how they're presenting things. You read their abstracts. So if you're just watching other people and stuff like that, I think that's the best way to learn. Just look at them and say, these guys doing that. That's cool. It's not to copy other people, because you have to you basically have to come up with your own style. But watching other people can help you understand maybe which parts of your style you want to try to filter out, and which parts of your style you want to try to improve on. That's all I can say.
Okay, that's cool. That's amazing, right? So. Just so we finish here, I know that we had a little bit of problems here with Kirk in terms of his video and things like this. So one thing that I would like to give you guys is I'd like to give you a link to an interview I did with Kirk Pepperdine about becoming a Java champion, right? So you can go on YouTube here to the side, and so you can actually see him instead of just listen to him, right? So go to that YouTube link. It's going to be on the description below too. Go there and go there and take a look at so you can have an interview with Kirk that we actually had video. Okay, Kirk. So thanks very much, man, for participating on this. Thanks very much for running J-Create, and not only that, for helping other speakers become better speakers. All your tips were amazing. I took so many notes here. I think that's and I love it. This whole thing that you mentioned about looking at other speakers and choosing things. So thanks a lot. All of these is very inspirational for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity, Bruno. You're awesome.
So just so Sebastian says that was truly awesome. Thanks again, Kirk. Rodrigo says very good session. Gertjan had already said that you're a god. So thanks a lot, man. Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, man. Thank you all.
Okay. Thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Great to have you guys here.
I'm waving too.
Remember that. Yeah, you are aiming to. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And remember that we're gonna have another session with Andres Almire in in about an hour from now.
I'm going to
So
watch it because he's awesome. He is really awesome.
yeah, yeah, Andres is awesome. So Basler says thank you. Maximiliano say thank you. So thanks everyone. I see you guys over this week. A lot of the people that Kirk mentioned here today are actually people that are going to be interviewing, right? So we're going to interview Rebea. We already interviewed Excel. We're going to interview Andres. So no, make sure that you're connected with us to hear from all of those great speakers. Thanks a lot, Kirk. Very good having you here.
Cheers.